Hello YouTube fans, here again. And as I'm talking about sword and sorcerer, why not this one? The one that sort of hit it all off, you could say, would have been told The Barbarian back in 1982. Now I say that because he did have other ones like Death of the Titans, another sort of sword and sorcerer, but this was more or less the one that started most of it. Now, the film did come out in 81, but it was also shot in 1982. And this was to be the big break for the man himself, Muscles, being Arnold Schwarzenegger. Arnold Schwarzenegger, as you know, was a well-known weightlifter. He did a few films before, you know what I mean? He started with a film with Turk Douglas, there he was a cowboy. And he's been in a few things where he was playing himself, a weightlifter. Let's not forget Hercules from New York, where his voice was dubbed. And he's been in a few Potam shows and so on, but his acting, I'm not going to get started on that. But Annie wanted to things people he could act, he wanted to make it big in the acting business. People wasn't taking him serious with the name, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and so on. So at the time, there was a well-known comic book called The Barbarian. And they had all different titles, a bit like the He-Man comic books. They had these Job Destroyer, Job takes this, Job takes that, the Barbarian, and all these Job Barbarian comic books. And like anything, they wanted to make a feature film of it. They wanted a well-known weightlifter, and Arn at that time was a well-known bodybuilder. But he was coming out of that. He wanted to make it big in the movie business. So what the hell? The rest is history. They've already got their man, Joel Dolden. So, it's based on the olden times, and I like the story. There's a little boy, and the father teaching him about sword and everything. I love the music. Stay away with that music. You know it's going to be an epic. Love the music. And like I say, you got the father doing the son about power and all this, and then you've got the people that come in, they murder the father, the fitted murder the fitted, and the bit where they die, his magical powers, puts the mother into a trance, cuts her head off. And I up to the dies the villain, the same guy that did the voice to Darth Vader from the Star Wars films, fiddled Feet of Dreams, I'm after the word then. Feet of Dreams, he's been in loads of films. I know he's sadly no longer with us, may he rest, but he plays a brilliant bad guy in this. A total brilliant bad guy. So they save the kids, and obviously, I admit there's a good lad to play the Arnie's character, Golden. Really does look like a young kiddie version of him, and you've got him as his slave. It makes me laugh. He's pushing this reel, this big rate all the way through, and he's now probably early 30s. And then they decided to have him as a gladiator. I love this bit. I love the bit where they give him these lines. We're going to rape the women and we're going to pillage the village. But it's just the way he says it. We're going to rape the women and we're going to pillage the village. I'm going to keep a straight face, but it's one of them you can just rewind back just for Arnie's lines. It's so laughable. So he's fighting, he's killing, he's umping women. He's having a ray of a time. And so they free him and becomes his own boss. Lumber on the road, he meets a few people, he meets a woman who, funny enough, this woman would appear again in the film Red Sonler. And I do know she worked a lot when she did this film, and she earned it. She did her own poetry, she did sword fighting, she did everything to get this role. Same as Arnie did, where we already had the body. And basically it's just like a revenge film. He wants to revenge the fact that his mum, his father, his people was finished and destroyed. And you do get a bit of fancy to it. There's a bit where Annie's having to away with this woman. She turns into a demon and suddenly he throws her body into fire. And really good practical effects. And I do know over this there was a remake. And they're talking of doing a new one now. Really? Come on. But this one, no problems with it. No problems. I do actually think it's a good story. It's like a revenge. He wants a revenge on the murder of his mum, his dad, and I'm repeating myself, but he does. I do like the bits, like I say, there's a bit where he gets caught, he gets badly beaten, and they stick him on this thing, on this TIG. Imagine now, remember Jesus, about going to religion here, stuck on with the nails on his hands. Well, they do that to Anna, the children. But the fear, and there's some of these spirits, again, good practical effects, bit of good stop motion there. They think he's going to die, but he doesn't. And his woman gets killed halfway by the main villain, gets shot by the snake, and it goes into her back, and it puts poison in her, and she dies. Is that a sad scene? But then Arnie coming back out the bit, he makes his man taps, he kills the people. This film is pretty bloody. For that era, this film is really bloody. I don't think it's as violent as the Deathstalker films. No, I don't think it's as brutal. It does have a little bit of nudity in it, but I think that's why a lot of people didn't like Job the Destroyer, which they did in '84, which was a follow up to this, because they tried to make it more kiddie friendly, more friendly. Like there's a funny bit in it where he punches a Tamil. A Tamil spits in his face, and he's pissed. Sucker punches it. Dan falls on in Job the Destroyer. I just want to get into that when I get to that one. I didn't know problems with Job the Destroyer, but some people said, oh, they made it more for kids. I didn't mind it for what it were. I do admit that Red Son lot with Arnie does have problems. That's one I could not offend if I try. Does have problems. But Job the Barbarian, it's a good film. It's a good film. So he goes for his revenge. He meets the main villain. The villain's trying to put him into a trance, only Arnie doesn't fall for it because he remembers what he did to his mum. He gets the sword, whacks him on the head, no fucking about, does an excellent one for Dud Messer, cuts his head off, throws it on the floor, no fucking about. And there's a bit where they've got to save this princess, I could forget that, and they meet this king, very good actor, who's also sadly no longer with us. And I do know there's a deleted scene where the king gets killed, really bloody, it was really brutal. For that era, it was very bloody firstly, so they end up having to trim it down. It was a deleted scene. Which I think it was the same here. I think they should have kept it in. But it's just me, I think it should have kept it in. But like I say, he saves his princess, he's a very weird woman, she has these snakes. And I do love the bit where Arnie's fighting with his big stop off snake. Good stop motion there. I'm a sucker for stop motion. But I do like the film, like I say, he kills the bad guy, he stands up, and then it shows footage of him supposed to be his old man, and you got the idea he's now a king, and it ends like that. So what can I say about the Barbarian? What can I say? A 5-star rating from me. I'll talk about more sword and sorcery on the way, but into them, be smart, be safe. See you later.